Hey, what's up you guys? In this video we're gonna work on this jar in 3ds Max and Substance Painter, so please give this video a thumbs up and share it around if you will. Alright, so right now we're gonna start working on this jar in 3ds Max, and the first thing we're gonna do is to create a cylinder. This is gonna be relatively a short tutorial, so I think it's gonna be aimed at people who don't know a lot about what we usually do on this channel when it comes to modeling 3ds Max and stuff. So as you can see, we're trying to change some parameters here when it comes to the cylinder in order to prepare it for modeling. We're going to remove all these segments and convert to the poly, and then we're going to remove some of the polygons that we don't need. And of course we're going to use a method that we call edge extrusion, in which we're going to extrude the edges. So all the time keep holding shift in order to create these shapes I'm creating here, and as well you need to use the move tool or the scale tool in order to move and create these curves that we can see here, or these shapes. Alright, so we are trying to move upward in order to create this jar in 3ds Max here, and actually if you can follow me exactly if you can follow exactly what I'm doing here, or if you want to create a shape that you like or something that you want to create on your own, feel free to do that. Or you can also use some reference images that you can find online. Just Google them and you will find tons of these. So this is gonna be just an example of what we want to do here. And as you can see here, right now I'm creating the inner part. It's not that difficult to do these things, and actually the inner part is not that important. Probably we're gonna stop right there because no one is gonna look inside, probably, because this is a small prop that is gonna be on the side. Probably it's gonna go unnoticed. So these polygons that you can see here, I just want to detach these, select them and detach them, and because these are going to represent the cap right now. So as you can see, I just collapsed these polygons together, and right now we're gonna try to apply the edge extrusion on it. And to do this, we need actually to bring the pivot to the center, and we will flip the surface upside down, because we want the black side, which is the inner side, to be actually to be in that position. All right, so as you can see, we are doing right now what we've already done before. So this is not something new to us if you're following my channel so far, because we've done so many things like these in the past. Okay, so right now I'll collapse these polygons together because I want to close that area on the top. And to be honest, this thing here doesn't have a lot of modeling to it. So for the main purpose of creating this is actually to actually focus less on modeling and do something interesting when it comes to texturing, which is going to be the last part of this tutorial. Here I'm trying to actually change these shapes a little bit, see if some change is going to be better for this case, which seems like we're better off leave it as it is right now. Okay, so also we need to change the color and the material, and we are now going to create something that we call floating geometry. So this floating geometry is actually going to be on top of the it's going to be part of the high poly surface, but it's not going to be attached to it, and we're going to use it in order to actually in the baking process inside Substance Painter, which is going to be the software in which we're going to do baking and texturing as well. Okay, right now we need to actually remove the edges that we created for this purpose, and we're gonna actually reset the smoothing groups, because sometimes we can see some of these issues taking place, which is actually not that big of a deal. All right, so for now we're gonna work on this piece that we call the floating geometry, and first of all, we can try actually to add some edges in between, which is gonna be a nice thing to do. But I think a better approach will be trying to add something else. So for now, I'm gonna show you that this approach is probably not gonna be the best because it's not intuitive and it's not as smooth as it should be. So as you can see here, adding all these edges in between in order to the problem is we're gonna actually have flat surfaces after all, but there is a better approach which is gonna actually give us round surfaces and is gonna look much better. So if we want actually to create these smaller pieces for this what we call floating geometry, probably we need to actually select all the edges, and we're gonna use the chamfer tool instead because it's gonna be much better, much efficient in terms of adding extra edges, because it's gonna give us that round surface that we are looking for. Alright, so we're probably gonna go with 2 or 3 edges, and we'll try to actually find the right distance that will help us to actually extrude these surfaces. As you can see, we will select them one by one. There are some techniques that are going to allow us to select every second polygon, but it's gonna be easy if we are not doing a project that depends on this technique. Alright, so right now we're gonna use the bevel tool in order to extrude these polygons that you can see here, and of course we're gonna change the size of the extruded polygon using this bevel tool here, which is gonna be actually better than using the extrude tool from the edible poly. Okay, this seems a nice result, but if we actually turn the vertices on top, we're gonna add some nice effects right there, and it's gonna look, I believe it's gonna look better. Okay, for now we're gonna open the layer explorer because we actually need to create 2 versions of this jar here. The first one is gonna be for the high poly, and the second is gonna be for the low poly. And it's really important to actually create these 2 versions because we're gonna need them both when it comes to the next processes that we're gonna work on later. Okay, for now we're gonna take the high poly, and we will try to work on the support edges. So we're gonna add some support edges in order to keep the high poly in place, and in order for us actually to give it that smooth look. So we're gonna use the edge. We can use the Swift Loop tool, which is gonna allow us to actually support the edges and make them look actually nice and smooth when we apply smoothie modifiers such as Turbo Smooth. Alright, so now we're gonna isolate this main piece here because we want to see through, we want to see inside, and do the same thing that we've done from the outside. Okay, so things look smoother than before, but right now we're going to continue working on the cap here because it is necessary that we apply this technique to all the pieces. Okay, so the same thing is gonna be happening here when it comes to the floating geometry. We can actually make things a little bit smoother when in transition, but I don't think this is gonna be necessary because I think keeping it straight is gonna be a better idea actually. Okay, right now we're gonna select one edge ring and then connect these, and using two segments here, and we're gonna separate them apart, push them to the very end, to the very top and the very bottom, because we want them to be supported. All right, it seems like we have a nice floating geometry right there, because it seems nice and integrated from a distance. For now, we're gonna bring the low poly version, and we're gonna start working on it. So first of all, we're gonna remove the floating geometry, because it's actually not necessary, and we're gonna remove some of the extra edges that are not needed, even though it's gonna be a little bit less than we should put on a low poly model, but it's on the other hand, keeping it as it is a little bit too much as well. So we're gonna choose one, and I'm gonna choose to reduce the poly count a little bit, even though it's gonna look a little bit little bit less smoother than it's supposed to be, but okay, control backspace in order to remove the edges, by the way. And for now, I think we are ready to start UV unwrapping this jar. So the first thing is we're gonna go to modify panel, and open the unwrap UVW and open the UV editor. And what we'll do is a simple thing. We're gonna select one polygon, select expand selection, go to mapping, and we're gonna go to box mapping. All right, so right now we will actually stitch the pieces that are going to be separated, because they need to be one piece actually. And to do this, you just need to stitch select, right click stitch selected, or shift S from the keyboard. Okay, right now we need to bring the checker texture to apply it to our piece right there, in order to see if there are any stretches, any problems with the surfaces, probably distortions or something like that. It seems like it is doing a great job right there. For now, for this next piece, it's going to be the same thing, but it's going to be a little bit more complicated, even though it's going to be nowhere actually kind of complicated. So it's gonna be extremely simple. Extremely simple, even though it's a little bit more complicated than the other one. All right, so we need to stitch all the all those surfaces, and we're going to extract the surfaces that, or the UV island that we think that are actually belonging to one surface. Alright, those on top actually are done. There is nothing we can do to them, but it seems like the main part here is actually broken into multiple pieces. What we need to do right now is we can do it using different ways. First of all, we can actually stitch all these together, which is going to take a little bit more time than necessary, but there is a better way, which is actually to select that area using using seams, and we're going to work on it individually, which I think is going to give us faster and better results. All right, just select the edges and convert them to seams, and what you will do is you're going to cut this surface open in order to use the pelt tool that is going to allow us to actually relax it and stuff. So start pelt, and we're going to use the peel mode in order to make it relax even further. The same thing goes for the other sections. Okay, right now it seems like we need actually to we need to stitch the rest of the pieces and organize them a little bit, because this is important. Probably relax some of these pieces because they seem a little bit too rigid somehow, and this will actually will loosen up these pieces and make them more relaxed. Okay, when we are done, we can actually apply the checker texture to our piece here, and we're gonna change the size and everything else according to what we see on the viewport, because the checker texture is also good for comparing the size of the UVs. For now, we need to actually attach these together because we want to create what we call the UV template, which is basically the sum of all the UVs that we've done before, and we're going to put them in one place that we call the UV template. Right now, as you can see, we'll try to put them inside one place. This is going to be easy and simple. Just put them in there and try to avoid leaving empty places that are going to be very noticeable, and make sure that the UV template is going to be beautiful and organized. And also it's better to actually keep the pieces that belong to the same, or keep the islands that belong to the same piece closer to each other, because it's going to be better for texturing, and if you want to do some modifications later on the texturing software. All right, so we need to test it a little bit, some of the things you're doing there, because sometimes actually you can figure out which position is going to be better until you try it out. So feel free to change whatever you want here, because it's completely up to you. All right, I think we are done with the UV template, and for now we're gonna go to Substance Painter. But before we do this, we actually going to rename our pieces, which is gonna be a simple thing to do, nothing complicated about it, something very easy. And we're gonna use a name for each piece and a suffix we're gonna add to it. All right, we are in a Substance Painter, and we're gonna bring the low poly version to the scene. As you can see here, this is the low poly we exported from the 3ds Max. You're gonna export it, of course, and right now we're gonna open the Bacon dialog here, the Bacon window. We're gonna change some parameters, as you can see. We're gonna change the suffixes that we used in 3ds Max. We're gonna go with by mesh name. When it comes to ID, we're gonna change some parameters as well. This is something you see me doing a lot in our tutorials, so it's gonna be repetitive. If you want, actually check some of the other tutorials and you will see what I'm doing. Okay, when it comes to texturing, it seems like we're gonna use fill layers a lot here. So we're gonna use the first fill layer for the base color. As you can see, it's gonna be yellow, between yellow and orange. So we're gonna actually change roughness a little bit because we want to prevent any kind of sort of reflections and anything else like that. And right now we're gonna go with another fill layer that is gonna be for damage. Okay, it seems like we need to create some damage right there because I think adding a black mask is gonna be a good idea. Also, we need to find a smart mask that is gonna allow us to do this thing efficiently. So it's gonna be probably this this mask here. We're gonna just drag it on top of the mask that we had there, and as you can see, we have some nice results. So for now, we're gonna change some of the parameters in order to make it look like a thing that we want to see on something like this. So there are so many parameters here. You can mess around and see which one is gonna give you better results. And here it seems like I'm gonna change the height a little bit because I want to push this damage a little bit. It seems like I want to actually give the impression that it's not a paint, but it's the outer surface of this jar is kind of worn out or something like that. So the next fill layer is gonna be for cracks. Okay, in order to do this, add a black mask, and we're gonna go choose a procedural layer or alpha. And before we do this, we're actually gonna need a fill layer. So we're gonna drop that fill layer, that procedural alpha on top of the fill layer section. As you can see here, this is not exactly what we want to see. So it's just not what we are aiming for. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the other one. Okay, I'm gonna change the color a little bit because I want to see these cracks better, and you can see that the red lines represent these cracks. This is not something we are intended to keep. We are just using in order to actually create the right setup before we start adding the right colors and the right maps. Okay, so okay, it seems like this is what we were going for, and for now also I want to change the height because obviously cracks are gonna be actually deep inside the surface, but at the same time you don't want to overdo it because it's gonna look cheesy and unrealistic. So we're gonna change the balance a little bit and the contrast in order to give it a real look, something that looks a little bit realistic and convincing when we look at it. Obviously, Substance Painter is not like 3ds Max. It's not just experience and something you learned before, but it's a lot of trying as well. You need to try a lot of things in order to get things right because this is a procedural software and it's a trial and error. All right, so the dirt, we're gonna add for this dirt, we're gonna add a smart mask that is gonna be actually that I wanted to actually use a mask that is gonna target one area, and as you can see here, it's at the bottom part. In order to do this, you need to invert. You're gonna select the invert parameter option right there in order to do this if it's gonna be reversed. And as you can see here, we're gonna change the grunge, we're gonna change the balance a little bit, or the amount, the level of the mask right there, and you're gonna actually choose the right amount that you're going for, and at the end you can change the colors if you want to. Probably you're gonna change the height if this is gonna, I don't think this is gonna be necessary because we already used these when it comes to the cracks and the damage. Okay, so right now we'll change the color a little bit. It seems like we're gonna go with something brown, something like this, and I think this is gonna be it for this tutorial. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you're new. And if you want to help me out, please share these videos with your friends, or with on some forums, or on Facebook, or whatever, with people who are interested. And I hope you liked it, and I will see you in the next one.